This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. Hi, everyone. This is your host, Dr. Barbara Focadas, host of the show Get Inspired with Dr. Barb, podcast on education. Often on my show, I really like to invite neurodivergent, incredible people who have gone through education system, know what it is like, and have some incredible ideas and tips that could really help the system, people who run the system as well, change it a little bit for better for children and teens. Because as it stands now, I do not see that the autistic population in school have great experiences in education. I do not see increase of good experiences that people who have autism and are in education system can share. Well, maybe those who can share are just not on social media, so we don't hear from them ever. But also, we don't have enough people who are autistic who would be on social media and share any of these experiences, good or bad, or something in between. And today's guest, his name is Matthew Kenslow. And Matthew, welcome on my show, Get Inspired with Dr. Barb.
Good morning. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So today we have a special guest, Matthew, because he is someone who is very active on social media, and he is autistic, and he is spreading a lot of information, knowledge, and really a lot of advocacy. And I don't think we have a lot of young people like that out there who would do it. We need more. Maybe not everybody wants to be on social media or has the courage to show up, but Matthew is definitely paving the way. And just a little bit about Matthew. So as I said, Matthew was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. That's what this condition is to refer to now. And as Matthew had said, as a result, life has been filled with adventure and struggle. There is both in this picture for sure. But not allowing autism to stop him, he became an author of 2 books. The first book title is Juggling the Issues, and the second one is Unstoppable. So Matthew is author of 2 books already. That is incredible. And he's telling the world, basically, that what it is like to live with this disability. And again, I don't like to see autism so much as a disability only. It depends on who you talk to, right? That's the kind of picture of this condition that we'll have. But also how people can be friends to autistic people, how they can even benefit from these friendships, really, because I think that being friends with someone who's a little bit different actually enriches you, enriches your perspective. Being with people who are just like you, I don't think it's that much fun. We want to learn from people who are a little bit different. And Matthew has appeared on television, radio, magazines, and podcasts, of course, too, around the world. Also was featured in outlets like Newsweek, Spectrum News, ABC, 7 Los Angeles, because Matthew lives in California, and many more, of course, outlets. And today, over 1 million follow his story on social media. I know that Matthew has an incredible account on Instagram. I think originally, I don't know how I'm just trying to figure out, Matthew, how we met. And I think I just somehow saw your account on Instagram. And I'm like, look at this autistic person here. He's got this huge account. Like, what's going on? He is out there showing himself, outspoken, right, and spreading all these ideas and just trying to make the world a better place. Really, that's what this is about. And as Matthew said also, it's about encouraging people to embrace the gifts that autistic people have to share with the world, because they have a lot of gifts and they want to share those gifts. They don't want to just keep the gifts to themselves. Many autistic people are people who are not very selfish. They have very kind hearts. That's my impression of many autistic people. And that's an incredible message to share and advocate. So I have to really say that, Matthew, I admire you because you're a lot on social media. You are talking about what it is like to be autistic. And with that, there is an advocacy part. And now we have to ask you, because you have also good education, you want to be eventually full-time teacher. For now, you are a substitute teacher. Can you tell us, our wonderful audience, a little bit about your beginnings? How was it for you in the school system at the beginning? Maybe you didn't have these wonderful ideas about being a teacher. What it felt like to be, I don't know, second, fifth grade and being autistic.
Well, when I was 3 years old, I was diagnosed with a speech delay, and because of that, it was suggested or recommended to me to go to the preschool intervention program. And so for preschool, when I was 4, I went there for a year. In there, I took speech therapy, and then that followed 3 years of special day classes from kindergarten to second grade. And all 3 years, I was pulled out to a general ed class, and then I would go back to the special day class, and they were testing to see how I would be in that environment. And by third grade, I was mainstreamed, so I had to go to another elementary school, but I was mostly in the general ed class, and that lasted throughout the rest of school from third grade to 12th grade. I continued with speech therapy all those years, which helped a lot, and I also had resource specialist program. Back then, that's what it was called. It was RSP. The equivalent today would be like special ed, special academic instruction, or specialized academic instruction. And that helped me. That provided an additional resource that gave me time to go from my general ed class to a smaller class where I could ask questions or study or work together with peers. And it also provided extra test taking accommodations, so like extra time in a quieter place.
So, so from the beginning, you had some health offered within a certain educational system, but I would imagine that you had some struggles too within that educational system. What would you say was the main obstacle for you in the educational system, whether coming from the system, from people, or anything that was happening in education at that time for you?
Well, for some parts it was figuring things out and trying to stay on top of the assignments in class and out of class. And I remember I really struggled with reading. I hated reading, honestly, and then making the time to do homework. I mean, once I started homework, I was like focused on that for the next several hours. I noticed that my peers, they seemed to understand, or most of them seemed to understand what the teacher was asking of them. The teacher would say, okay, go ahead and start, and everyone's working. I felt a little bit lost, like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Whether it's independent or a group project. And talk about reading real quick, I look at my peers during silent reading time, and they're invested in the book, but I'm here struggling to read.
And I'm smiling, not because what you're saying is funny. It's not at all, but you know, it just connects exactly to what I would hear from my own child. Okay, who's also autistic, a little bit gender-wise. They are gender fluid, but anyway, there are some autistic features that are very, very common for almost all autistic individuals, even though they are all different in a little bit different spectrum points, so to speak. But that is the common theme, I think. It's just the teacher's talking and everybody is listening, I guess. And then the teacher stops talking. Supposedly everybody knows what they do because you look around and they do the thing, right? They do the thing they're supposed to do, and you still don't know what to do. And the feeling of almost like embarrassment and guilt that you don't, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine. And what does that do to the I mean, self-esteem and all that? You feel, I mean, from my own kid, I have to tell you this, and our audience, the kid feels dumb. Everybody knows what to do. I don't. And at these in these moments, was there anybody there, teacher or anybody else, who kind of looked at you and say, just don't worry about it. Let's just go on the side here and I just explain to you one more time. Just don't worry about it. Everybody learns in their own way. So just don't be embarrassed. I don't always get what the teacher says. Was anybody like that who would come forward and make you feel normal or
My
not?
teachers, yeah, my teachers were very supportive all my life, but going up to them and asking, "Can you repeat that to me?" Like on my part, that took courage, and I got better with that as years went on. There are sometimes I went up to the teacher and thinking, "What is he or she going to think?" Like,
Yeah.
especially if it was a simple instruction. So,
Well, I'll tell you, there is an overarching theme, and thinking that you are. It's almost like thinking you are the problem because you're gonna take the time from this teacher, telling that you still don't understand, and it's almost like thinking that you're the problem, right? Like I'm this burden here because I'm gonna ask this question, and it's a guilt kind of thing. And now I have to say, and I have to ask you this question from this perspective now, and knowing that you were felt embarrassed to ask. I mean, this is something that is almost notorious in education that many kids, they don't think asking questions is the right thing to do. They think, what if I'm wrong, right? What if I'm wrong? Then I'm going to look dumb. There is no culture of it's okay to ask a question of any kind. There is no dumb questions. Well, what's the problem here? I mean, we don't have this culture in educational system, and that I think is part of the problem. So from that perspective, what would you then tell to the teacher who wants to learn how to help autistic individuals but has no clue what to do, but wants to at least help? What would your advice be what they could do to not make this autistic individual feel dumb, guilty, embarrassed to ask questions?
my advice would be get to know the students, and that goes for all the students, and to try and draw on their assets. So, in my student teaching, my first semester was to get to know the students and their interests and such, and draw on those assets. And once you know that, then you could differentiate instruction if needed, which means tailoring instruction so that helps the students to succeed. And that may give them more choices on a project, like topics to choose from, or more ways to present their knowledge through written form or through verbal form or an audio presentation. Just different ways for them to prove that they understand, and to like if they have an IEP or 504 plan, they have like a list of accommodations. So get to know that, and I guess periodically check in with the student, asking them how are they doing. If the student or if the students are on a task, perhaps go to these individual students while everyone's working, saying, "Hey, are you understanding what
Yeah.
is going on?" And it's interesting, kind of bit on that note, yesterday I happened to be subbing an SAI class at my former elementary school, and students would push in for about 20 or 30 minutes and take a test or study. And I helped this one student on a grammar or like a reading test, and I had to read the stories to him. I had to read all the questions and answers, and that helped him. And then when it got time to the writing part, he was able to dictate to the computer, and the computer would type it out for him.
That's amazing. I mean, you obviously, your answer is not just from the perspective of autistic person who used to be a student, Ray, and have all these experiences, but also from the perspective someone who's educated as a teacher. And that's great advice. Knowing the student and being able to incorporate these interests, that is still something that in many cases is not done very well in school. And as you know, IEP plans also don't really have a section on motivating, on what's motivational for students. This is not a section, even though it's so important. And you just stressed being able to know the student, being able to incorporate interests into educating them. That is not a priority on IEP. I don't know when it's going to happen. Probably somebody has to create some buzz about it because these documents don't change very often, as you probably know very well. They are outdated. That's really what's happening. And we know what would work for autistic people, but IEP plans do not support this very well, unfortunately. So we need some more advocacy, Matthew.
Yeah.
We gotta do some more work, really, right? Because this is across the board. These documents are outdated. But that was great advice. And now for the parents, would you have any advice for a parent of an autistic child or teen who struggles too. Parents struggles too because it's not always easy for them to understand their own child, especially if they themselves not neurodivergent parents, right? So that's a challenge too. And then they need to be able to advocate for their kid with teachers, with administrator. What do you think would be an important part or thought or tip for a parent to that you could share?
I usually encourage parents to continue to show care and love to the child and advocate for them, especially earlier on in life. And that's exactly what I saw my mom do throughout my schooling, especially in elementary school. She would talk to the teachers or attend meetings with the administration about me. And because of that, I believe I am where I am today. So I'd say continue with that and to teach life skills. Like my mother taught me how to do life skills from cooking to driving and such, and I'm very appreciative. And then encourage the student to socialize with peers, I would say,
Yeah.
instead of just staying inside, because that's also another part of us that we desire to socialize with peers, and then to encourage them to advocate for themselves if they're able to. Like some autistics are able to advocate for themselves, and that's what I especially learned in high school. Those are some of the things I'd say.
Wow, these are just excellent, excellent tips. And how tough it was for you to, for instance, you're talking about those life skills there. They are really, really important. I know that right now there are some, depending on the geographic areas, but not only. I've seen some even online resources, companies. I don't know how good they are. They are advertising themselves as businesses, organizations, whatever they are, that help autistic individuals with these skills. Because as you can imagine, it's very hard for a parent, working parent, to do it all, right? To teach the autistic individuals all. It's not a very, very easy thing. I personally don't really imagine myself teaching my kid how to drive. I don't know. It's just very hard to do this as a parent because you have a little totally different relationship with your child. Did your mom have any kind of other support? Did you have any other kind of support or institution, organization? Or she really did it all by herself, teaching you how to drive, cooking, and everything else?
I mean, I took like after school programs in school. I mean, not limited to diversity, but anyone could join. So there's a lot of programs that I was involved with that taught me a lot of life skills. One of them is Royal Rangers, which is affiliated through a church, but it teaches wilderness survival skills and leadership skills as well.
That sounds really good. So this combination of being able to be enrolled in some sort of workshops, whatever they are like that, or courses that have this goal of teaching life skills, and then of course parental advocacy. It's always very important. What is your, if I can ask you, what is your vision for own growth as far as your own advocacy, what you would like to see on your pathway? Maybe you have some plans, some goals in this area that you could share with us. Like, what's next for Matthew?
I'll continue to post on social media, advocate, trying my best to be on more television, news, radio, podcasts, and whatever it takes to advocate, as well as in-person advocacy here in Orange County, California. My goal is to be in every school, public and private, in Orange County, California, to do my volunteer assemblies. And so far I've spoken to over 12,000 students and like 500,000 more to go, so I'm not sure if that will be possible. I mean, I believe all things are possible. But eventually I'd also like to enter a full-fledged teaching position and to have a math teaching position because I have a single subject math credential from California. Within the next year or two, I'd like to start that career. So the time is limited, but I would hope to continue in-person assemblies. For this, I will plan to post on social media and get PR for news, radio, podcasts.
That's amazing. You've got a solid plan, and we didn't speak much about your assemblies, but this is a huge thing because what you're essentially doing is just traveling as much as you can to places, to high schools, right, to educational institutions, and speak to whom? Speak to children there, speak to administrators and teachers. And what can you maybe describe one moment or two of especially memorable assembly? Maybe you got an interesting question from these kids. Like, if you could just bring us to one of these events, because I would imagine that you get all kinds of questions. And number one thing, you probably get a lot of these kids are getting inspired because they see, here you go, here's another autistic individual. If he can do it, he can sub, he can be a teacher, and he can also travel, speak, and inspire others. I can do that too. That's really what you're doing, right? But is there any particular moment that maybe kind of like stands out for you from these meetings, even if it's a funny moment, whatever it is?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that instantly came to mind, I've done assemblies in over a couple dozen schools, and I usually get messages, emails from parents afterwards saying that what I did, what I said, were the first things that their students said when they were picked up that day or when they came home. Parents thanked me because students are feeling thankful to have autistic friends themselves and everything. There's one moment, the moment that came to mind, I was at Anderson Elementary in the Corona del Mar zone, and a sixth grader came up to me afterward to thank me, and he thanked me for a couple seconds, but then he turned away, and I saw another teacher go up to him, and I was surrounded by other students, so I'm like, okay, he said thank you, I'm very appreciative, and then I was going to speak with other students, like they had questions and such. Well, anyway, I get an email afterwards from the parent of that boy that came up to me, and the parent said that this boy was actually in tears from my message, and he felt like for once there's a person who understands what he was going through. And so they invited me over to their house to answer questions for the sixth grader, and so we coordinated with that, and he asked a bunch of questions about living as an autistic, and he himself is autistic as well.
So that connection from the assembly resulted in like a private visit, right? And further inspiration for this young person. That's absolutely amazing. I don't think anybody autistic like you with the teaching credentials ever visited my child's school, but I know that there are some other inspirational people who visit sometimes these high schools, such as like a local basketball player, right? People who have gone through some stuff, they have some career, they have something inspirational to share. And I know that these talks and meetings have incredible impact on my child. So what you're doing is absolutely amazing, and I hope that you're going to continue. Maybe when you have the permanent teaching position, it might be harder, but I have a feeling you will find the way to still continue these appearances because they are absolutely incredible. That's a huge part of your advocacy, really, to see these young people and to be able to speak to them. And they see you, like I said in our little conversation right before this recording, I instruct in a teaching preparation program for both undergraduate students who want to be teachers and also those who need to get master's degree in teaching. I don't think I have seen anybody autistic trying to become a teacher, and I just wonder if that would be the case. Would these people get support from the university, from the departments, from instructors? Because I think that if we don't have teachers who are autistic individuals, then these autistic individuals, they just don't see themselves in these positions, right? It's like, how can I be a teacher? There is no autistic teachers. I've never seen one, right? But then they see you telling them pretty much, hey guys, anything is possible, right? And don't make your condition, autism, hold you back. What is the main message that you always try to give them in these assemblies?
Is one of my main messages is disability or not, anyone could do whatever they set their heart to mind to do, as long as it's practical, of course. And that behind the disability, we all have a heart and a mind. Speaking about being like an autistic substitute teacher in front of the students in the classrooms for the last 3 years, I've had some comments, compliments, students asking me questions more about autism. They wanted to learn more. One fifth grader asked me last year, like, so what was the number one challenge and what was the number one success of having autism or being autistic? But I think one of the special moments I had was a couple of years ago. There's a mother who recognized me at a Target, and she said, "You subbed for my daughter in 6th grade, and she's also autistic. But because you were there as a teacher, she now believes that she could do what she puts her mind to do."
This is absolutely amazing. And that's why we need more Matthews like you doing those assemblies, right, in these other schools. And maybe in the future, you would be able to, I don't know, get some kind of sponsorships or different things. So you potentially could fly to these other places, right? Like New York right now. It would be absolutely amazing because you already have so much experience with this and a lot of stories, testimonials, these incredible stories, what it means to these young people. When they see someone like you being successful, that's how they start believing that they can do it too. It's hard to have this belief without an example of someone who has made it, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, I believe so. And not just autism, but other advocates advocating about their disabilities.
Totally, totally. So what you're doing is absolutely amazing. And if you could share with our audience too, where they can follow you to see what you're doing, to learn more about autism too, because you're sharing your struggles, all these things related to being an autistic person in the world and in the profession of teaching. And not only, where can they follow you and see your activity?
I post often on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Primarily, those are like my top platforms, but I also post a bit on Facebook. I post videos, reels, shorts on these platforms explaining, having various videos about autism and what it's like, the pros and the cons. So I encourage people, if they want to, I mean, it help spread the message, if they want to share them with people that they think would benefit from them.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. And again, I invite everybody to listen to the episode and also let us know, let me know, let Matthew know what you think about these ideas we were discussing, Ray, today. And don't forget to follow the show, Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. Leave us a review too. We wouldn't mind it. And when you follow, you'll never miss an episode. So that's a good idea too. Thank you so much, both Matthew and our wonderful audience, and see you all on social media. Bye, everyone. Bye, Matthew. This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb.